I am a missionary kid. In fact, to Brazil. So I have the idea of how both governments work. And today we're looking at, you guessed it, the America and Brazil relationship. It's kind of in a tipsy scenario right now, but we're going to get into all of that and we're going to check out how it can improve. And also, what you can take away and what you need to know for the future. This is The Lighthouse with Elijah Lee. Alrighty, so today's a big one for me because I'm looking at something it just kind of hits close to home for me, really, and that's the fact that talking about both of my home countries, I would say America's much more my, I guess in the sense of being born there and that being my native language and that being the country whose independence I celebrate. That is my home in that sense. Brazil is more of a living home. Brazil's the home that I feel super comfortable in Brazil. It's a nice atmosphere. The people are great. The food's amazing. So all these things combine to make a really great homey feel for me. However, it's important to notice that though relationship wise, it hasn't been a super talked about thing or anything. Brazil and America, there's an important kind of connection we need to make here. Because these are two very strong countries. Now, yeah, America's first world. Brazil's not really first world. It's technically third world. I think it's definitely moving up. But the point is that though it's not looked at a lot, Brazil and America have a lot of effect on each other. As someone, who has lived in Brazil, I can tell you for a fact that Brazilians look up to Americans, and Brazilians like to do what Americans do. They think it's cool. So when Americans do something stupid, you better believe that the Brazilians are gonna probably follow in suit. So this is something to be super, super careful about as a country. We have people watching us all the time. So we definitely need to take that into consideration. But the leaders currently in Brazil are not the greatest of people. They're kind of communistic, unfortunately. Now, to give you kind of a quick background of the Brazilian government, the last presidential election was in 2022 here in Brazil. Now, there were two big candidates running. There's Jair Bolsonaro and there was Lula. Now, Lula is very socialistic. He was in jail, got out, and got elected. Which is not cool, in case you couldn't tell. That being in jail and then being elected is not cool. But Jair Bolsonaro is an excellent president. I think he was the best option at the time. If he runs again, he will be the best option again. He's pretty solid. His beliefs. He's got great religious beliefs. He's got great political beliefs. He did less than we anticipated from his campaign. The promises he made, he didn't follow up on all of them. But at the same time, he did get a lot done, and he was a good president. The country did not suffer under him. However, it is severely suffering under the current president, Lula. So, what's the controversy here? First off, to understand everything that's going on, we first have to understand that the election was stolen here in Brazil. Now, there's a lot of proof for this, and to give you a quick history, 2022, we're watching the election. I know tons of people have gone out and voted. Everyone's voting for Bolsonaro. In fact, there are people, friends of mine, that had gone to the poll. Everyone's got their Bolsonaro shirts on, supporting him. And he goes in there, he votes, comes out. You can later check the votes at that certain poll you voted at. And Lula was way up ahead of Bolsonaro. Yet everyone in line to vote was for Bolsonaro. So there's just one thing, right, that started setting everyone off. But it was so similar to the American 2020 elections. It's insane. It was the same thing, like Trump had massive rallies and Biden had practically no one. Same thing here. Bolsonaro had massive rallies. Lula, like, was suffering with the numbers. Lula couldn't even get Lady Gaga to come, and play for him at his rallies. So what I'm saying is it was kind of a lost cause for Lula. We all thought, Bolsonaro's got an easy win here. And obviously we were all hoping for that. Because we want a good president, 4 more years of Bolsonaro would not have been a bad thing. I can totally promise you that. And we're all watching this election expecting Bolsonaro to win. And slowly his numbers are dwindling and Lula is shooting past him. There are people filming the big cities. And the big cities, you're expecting, it's a lot more liberal kind of, you're just going to expect them to be that way. We know New York, very liberal. Los Angeles, very liberal. So these big cities are usually quite liberal. Same thing here in Brazil, the same kind of idea. Well, a guy was filming over the city of São Paulo, over there, Guarulhos. These are all very highly popular. Minas Gerais. And there was, like, nobody celebrating. Nobody shooting off fireworks. So few people were happy about this. They did the stickers things where they'll put on the stickers of the candidate they like before the election. I saw so many Bolsonaro stickers. And I saw, like, 3 the entire, months before the election. I saw, like, 3 Lula stickers. So, what's going on? Right? This is already a little messed up. Skip to today. Well, let's go a little bit before today. So, we have this idea that the election was stolen. Like, we're pretty certain of that. Very good evidence that the election was stolen. But now, the people that are in power, unfortunately, only go for their gain. They don't go for the good of anyone else but themselves. May 21st, 2025. Rising tensions between the U.S. and Brazil. Because U.S. Senator Marco Rubio mentioned in Congress that the U.S. might apply the global Magnitsky Act, which are sanctions, basically, against Alexandre de Moraes, accusing him of corruption and human rights abuses. Now, Alexandre de Moraes is the head of the STF, which is like the Supreme Court in Brazil. But first, before we get to that, what is the Global Magnitsky Act? It's a United States law that empowers the government to impose penalties on foreign countries, relations, individuals, entities. It's involved in severe human rights abuses or significant acts of corruption anywhere in the world. That's what we are, kind of, as America is kind of like the peacekeepers. That's what we want to uphold. We want to constantly be having that peace. So, a good thing is to try to help out other countries that are having these difficulties, which we've done in the past. We've gone and helped countries. You talk about Vietnam, you talk about Korea, countries that were having political issues or uprising or communist takeover, and we went and helped those countries. And that's kind of the same thing that's happening with Brazil. But that's what the Global Magnitsky Act is. Now, it was inspired by the original 2012 Act, which was aimed at Russian officials implicated in the death of lawyer Sergei Magnitsky. The global version was enacted in 2016 to extend the reach to offenders outside Russia. So it started in Russia, and then they're like, well, let's just include everyone else. But Magnitsky died in a Moscow prison in 2009 after exposing large-scale corruption in the government. So we gotta get the idea what's going on here. We're constantly trying to help out other countries. So what does the act allow America to do? Well, it frees assets with U.S. jurisdiction belonging to designated individuals or organization. It bans entry into the United States for those that are listed on it. It can even restrict the U.S. from dealing with parties that are sanctioned. So America can really move chess pieces here. And that's the super important part. is being ahead of the game when you're dealing with someone that's dangerous and that is taking rights from other people. That's super important, to be ahead of the game. Now, what did Alexandre de Moraes do? The Supreme Federal Court of Brazil, the leader here, what did he do that triggered these U.S. sanctions? Well, let's look here. He put some prosecutions and restrictions against Jair Bolsonaro. So, first there were coup allegations. Moraes oversaw major criminal cases, accusing Jair Bolsonaro of attempting a coup to overturn Brazil's 2022 presidential election. He authorized and managed cases advancing the stage of collecting testimony from witnesses linked to the alleged plot. So, obviously, this is very reminiscent, again, but kind of inverted from what happened in America, because instead of the guy who lost accusing the guy who won of things, instead the guy who his party won, the man he undoubtedly voted for won. Yet now he's accusing Bolsonaro of tampering with the election, which totally makes a ton of sense because we have a lot of proof. You keep listening. Listen to all of you guys who are out there listening. This is a prime example of lost freedoms. When someone takes a majority of the government, it's someone that has socialistic, they have communistic values, and what they don't care about is your freedom, and they don't care about anyone else's freedom, and they only care about what's going to gain them. So, what does Moraes do? He starts accusing Bolsonaro of all these things, and he even won the election. So what's he going to get out of this? Well, next election, guess who wants to run? So if he cuts out this candidate now, they won't have to deal with him later. And that is not how a free country works at all. It's not a republic. Guys, it's not in any way, shape, or form a free country. This is censorship at its max. In July 2025, the Supreme Court, under Moraes' direction, imposed strict restrictions on Bolsonaro. They put an ankle monitor on Bolsonaro, put him under house arrest. Now he's prohibited from using social media, contacting foreign officials. That's including his son. Okay? He also cannot do these things. So, they're just going from. So, Moraes didn't just stick to Brazil. You all heard, I am assuming, of the formerly Twitter, scandal. If you have not, quick rundown. Moraes issued court orders to block or censor content on platforms such as X and Rumble for non-compliance with Brazilian disinformation rulings. This affected not only Brazilian but also U.S.-based users and companies. I remember when this happened. And being in Brazil, when this happened, it was very scary. It was very scary when this happened. Because you know what? You're living in a country you're told is free. And a country that you're told has free speech. Yet that's not what this looks like. At all. This is disarming people who have proved points against you. And not even in a bad way. They're not telling lies. That's the bad part, is they're telling the truth and you don't like it, so you cut them out. And that's no longer free speech. So that's a big issue that America has to get behind. They have to stop this. Now, there were some U.S. lawmakers and commentators that claimed that Moraes' decision stifled protected expression by Americans and threatened U.S. business operations, leading to assertions that he was exporting censorship abroad. So, not just in Brazil, he's censoring people all around the world. This is very dangerous. This is very, very dangerous. This is a loss of freedom. Now, the third, I would say, big thing that Moraes did to make America hate him, and not just America, Brazil hates him. I can testify to that. U.S. officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, alleged that Moraes had created a persecution and censorship complex that equated to a broad crackdown on opposition figures, journalists, and regular citizens aligned with Bolsonaro's political movement, which I saw this. This was all over the news. People who would go against him were immediately shut down. They were censored. And this is dangerous. Again, this is very dangerous. So now people that are giving the truth out, so everyone who's watching can have an idea of what's going on and they can know how to deal with this, they can no longer do that. And now everyone's going to be confused. They don't know what's going on. No one's getting the truth anymore because you don't know what the truth is because your country is shutting down the people that are telling the truth because it endangers the politicians and their ambitious moves. So, this all just further justified the use of the Magnitsky Act. Now, there are some sanctions here. This included visa restrictions targeting Moraes, fellow justices, and even their families. May 28th, the Trump administration announced visa restrictions on officials involved in censorship against U.S. citizens. This targeted STF members like Moraes. So he is now losing America visa restrictions. This is not cool for Moraes. He had family that was studying here in America on like a student visa. Those were taken away. Trump is just cutting this dude down. Like, cutting him down. If you mess with freedom of speech, even if it's not in our country, but you mess with our friends, the way that he has, and Bolsonaro was a great ally of the U.S., if you're going to cut out freedom, then in my country, I have all the right to cut out your freedoms. And I'm going to do this until you start letting people speak again. And it's kind of a suffocating, it's a no room to breathe situation that Trump is putting on Moraes. On July 7th, Trump publicly criticized Brazil's treatment of ex-president Jair Bolsonaro. Lula responded by firmly defending Brazilian sovereignty, stating, "We do not accept interference or tutelage from anyone." Okay. Sure. Yeah. If there's if there was a soccer game here in Brazil, and I don't know, a person ran onto the field carrying a Bolsonaro flag, and you guys got all mad at him and jailed him, and then Trump interferes, okay, it's one thing. I understand that. But when you're shutting down people who are telling the truth, do not get mad when someone who wants to fight for freedom, someone who wants peace, gets involved. By being an ally of America, by trading with America, you have involved yourself with America. And you knew very well when Trump was elected that he was going to do these types of things. This is the kind of president that Trump is. That's just a fact. And until Lula and Moraes learn to accept that, learn to calm down, learn to stop with this just idiocy, and they stop thinking about themselves, that's when we can see improvement for them and their lives. July 9th, Trump sent a letter to Lula announcing 50% tariffs on all Brazilian exports to the U.S., specifically citing the judiciary actions against Bolsonaro as a witch hunt. The tariffs are set to start August 1st and are positioned as retaliation for what Trump calls persecution of Bolsonaro. This is a big move. This is going to hurt Brazil. This is going to hurt Brazil economy. The economy is not the only thing that's going to suffer. You're going to have the people backlashing against the president because nobody likes him at this point. He's just an old creep, basically. So, whatever happens negatively from these tariffs, no one's going to blame Trump. Everyone's going to blame Lula, and they already are. I have talked to several Brazilians that are totally on board with Trump. And he's doing this against their country. But they are totally on board with him. If you want to complain about what Trump is doing with relation to Brazil, then know that even the Brazilians are on board with him. Be careful what you say. Just as a warning. On July 10th, Lula interviewed denouncing U.S. interference and called Trump's imposition of tariffs an unprecedented act. He stressed Brazil's independent institutions and that trade policy will not be held hostage to legal actions. Okay, again, he's talking about Brazil as a country. No, Brazil's its own thing. Brazil's independent, so Trump cannot treat it as his own country. But you, who was, again, you're an elected official. You're not a king. You're not a dictator. You're very much acting like it, and you're very much censoring your people. And if the people want it, as they would say here in Brazil, tá lascado, which basically means you're in a bad situation, buddy. July 11th, Trump said he might talk to Lula, but not now, doubling down on support for Bolsonaro, whom he calls an honest man, and criticizes Lula's handling of Bolsonaro's trials, which I totally agree with. He is totally right about this. Totally right about this. This is being handled horribly. I mean, house arrest, an ankle monitor, are you kidding me? Without, like, nothing. Like, no proof, like, nothing. This is so wrong. This is so wrong. And I cannot stress that enough. This is horrible. This is not how a free country works. On July 17th, in an interview, Lula rejected Trump's threats, stating Trump was elected to lead the U.S., not to be the emperor of the world. Again, he's going off about this. He says he is open to talks but will not accept impositions. Brazil warns it will retaliate with reciprocal tariffs if the U.S. goes ahead. And, like, what are you going to tariff, buddy? America gets a couple things from Brazil. They get coffee. They get beef. They get some plants, like, for factories. But otherwise, not a ton. There are tons of other South American countries, island countries they can go to for these things that Brazil is exporting. So, will that hurt America? A little bit. You know? Your coffee might go up in price a tad. But otherwise, mostly, you will be pretty fine. With this isn't going to hurt you as a person in America too bad. So that's just kind of like a side note. Don't be too worried about this if he does do the reciprocal tariffs. Lula is the kind of guy that he threatens to do something and then he never really does it. So he might, but know that he does not always do that. And if he does, it won't be that horrible. Then, the Supreme Court of Brazil, Justice Alexandre de Moraes ordered Bolsonaro to wear an electronic monitoring anklet, like I said, imposed nighttime house arrest, literally just broke into his house. Literally. Prohibited contact with diplomats and banned him from embassies. The federal police have evidence that Bolsonaro and his son, Eduardo, tried to coordinate U.S. sanctions on Brazilian officials. So this is a little bit outside the case, like the original reason, right, why they were getting all over Bolsonaro. Even if Bolsonaro was trying to coordinate sanctions, I kind of understand that. Because I'm not condoning, like, anything. Obviously, we've been talking about this the entire episode. I don't condone like anything that happened that Lula is doing. I think it's very wrong. I can understand where Bolsonaro is coming from. If he did coordinate those sanctions, I can understand what he's doing. If he puts these sanctions, he knows it's very likely it will loosen the grip of Lula and Moraes. So I understand what he's doing. At the same time, I can't say it was the smartest move. You're feeding the monster. So I think Trump would have done it anyways, even if you weren't coordinating. That's my opinion. That's what I think. I'm totally open to being totally wrong about that, but I just think that things could have been a bit easier if that was not the case. If he had not done that. So, we'll see. Moraes justified these actions because Bolsonaro allegedly attempted to influence Supreme Court workings through connections in the U.S. The court approved all requested restrictions at a rare urgent session. Again, the court in Brazil is very, very leaning to one side. So, it's like very, very, very hard to see how just this actually is, how fair it actually is. I'm starting to think that it's not like super fair, but we're gonna see. We're gonna head into the future a bit, and as we go, we're gonna find out these things. I'm definitely gonna be keeping updated on this. We might have to have a part 2 on Brazil and America just to see what's going on. But like I said, anything could happen. This could result in a tariff war. This could result in a lot. So keep your eyes open on this story. But July 21st, reports suggest U.S. authorities contacted Bolsonaro's camp to indicate more sanctions could be in store. U.S. is weighing increased import tariffs from 50% to 100% and restricting visas, military collaboration, or even satellite/GPS access for Brazil. Legal experts deem some of these threats, like GPS cutoff, unlikely and largely symbolic. Not like they're actually going to do this. They might. But I think a lot of it is just a threat. Now, if you're pushed, you might have to go through with it. And that's not going to be cool for anyone. At the same time, you have to do what you have to do. In this case. July 21st through 22nd, Alexandre de Moraes ordered the freezing of assets and accounts belonging to Eduardo Bolsonaro, which is Jair's son, and expands media restrictions. Bolsonaro is barred from giving interviews on any social networks, directly or via others. This is horrible, guys. This is horrible. This is horrible. What are we doing? What is going on? Like, the world's just watching this happen. Like, this is serious. This is actually happening. This is happening in our world today. That is scary. If this reaches the Western Hemisphere, I mean, we've already seen Venezuela go down. We saw Argentina before Milei became president. We saw all these things. This is not a good situation, guys. So, keeping an eye open for this again. This is not freedom. On July 22nd, Moraes gave Bolsonaro and his lawyers 24 hours to explain potential violations of prior judicial orders. If they do not explain these things, then Bolsonaro could face imprisonment, which is pretty insane. July 22nd, again, Lula reiterated Brazil's willingness to negotiate, but says that the country is not yet in a tariff war, though a confrontation could begin if Trump's tariff policy remains unchanged. Diplomatic efforts led by Lula's team are ongoing to find a resolution. You can't deal with this guy. Like, you literally cannot deal with this guy. He is dangerous, and he is not safe. In every meaning of the word safe, he is the total opposite of that. This is a bad dude. This is a jailbird leading the country. And we have a pretty good idea that he's not even supposed to be leading the country. So, what's the current state? Well, Trump, what is he doing? He's insisting on tariffs as punishment for the injustice against Bolsonaro. and he's hinting further action if Brazil doesn't change course. He ties the trade war to judicial proceedings in Brazil, which I totally understand. Lula just keeps talking about this is not America. Brazil is not owned by America, so Trump can't do anything about this, which is like, so dumb. But oh well, here we are. Moraes is doing everything he can to incarcerate Bolsonaro and end his happiness. Unfortunately, these guys do not want to give up anything. They're incredibly corrupt and arrogant. This is going to cause them major losses and hurt many of their own friends, but they don't care about that. They do not care about how this affects anyone in their life. All they care about is themselves, what they can get through this. And these guys do not give up. These guys are dangerous, and they need to be taken care of in the right way. This may be a lesson learned for the U.S. We are not to fall into this trap. What we need to do is stay focused on what we have now, our freedoms. We need to stay focused on what we can do now to keep those freedoms. And if someone comes into power that should not be in power, or if someone comes in and starts acting like a total commie or a dictator, we need to shut them down. We need to end restriction of freedom. But there can be no freedom if no one fights for it. And that is the moral of the story. Freedom is not free. And one more time, this is just another grim reminder that some people would rather have you in chains than have you telling the truth. The world is quite crazy, but I am crazier, as usual. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Just make sure you subscribe. You know how it works. Comment, like it. I appreciate those who have already come out and supported. It's been totally awesome. I am so enjoying this. This has been an absolute blast. And I'm looking forward to what the future may hold. God bless all of you. Stay safe. And don't forget that the next episode is the episode with our guest. So don't forget to miss that. And God bless the USA.